So going down this weekend, we have UFC Fight Night Sandhagen versus Figueiredo. And in this video, I will be giving you my full card breakdown along with a prediction for every single fight on the card. And from top to bottom, I think that this is a very solid card. And the main event between Cory and Figgy, man, that is high-level MMA at its finest. And in the co-main event, Bo Nickal taking on, without question, his toughest test to date in RDR, and then who I've been saying is one of the dark horses of the bantamweight division in Montel Jackson, as he will be taking on Daniel Marcos in what I am anticipating a very fun matchup between those two. So top to bottom, very solid card. Let's hop into it, starting with the first fight of the evening between Juliana Miller and Ivana Petrovic. To me, this is a very straightforward matchup here, man. Very straightforward matchup. Juliana Miller, she's been very inactive, right? Since she's been in the UFC, she got a nice ground and pound finish over Walker, but since then, she got outscored by Veronica Hardy, goes out there and gets finished by Yana Santos almost 2 years ago. So inactivity has not been on her side, right? But Juliana Miller, she wants to get the fight to the floor. She has pretty solid ground and pound. She has decent submissions in her back pocket. But that's kind of the problem in this matchup because her strengths, I don't believe, are better than Ivana Petrovic, because while she may only be 1-2 inside the UFC, Ivana's got a nasty submission game. When the fight hits the floor, man, her jiu-jitsu is excellent. She's dangerous from almost every single position, and she goes out there, loses to Luana Carolina in her UFC debut, but then she gets a submission over Liang, and then loses a split decision to Jamie Lynn Horth, to where I don't think that that's a horrible loss at all. I think Jamie Lynn Horth has shown some nice promise here in the UFC. So I just think overall, Ivana Petrovic, in my opinion, is the clear better overall fighter. I think she has more ways to win. I think she's quite a bit quicker. I think she's quite a bit cleaner. And I just think she does everything better than Juliana Miller. Of course, Juliana could, take her down, control her, and win the fight that way. But I honestly see Petrovic finding a submission in some of these grappling exchanges because I anticipate that the fight will hit the floor. And even if it is on the feet, I think Ivana is a little bit quicker and a little bit sharper to where she could pick Juliana Miller apart. But I think that Juliana will entertain the grappling and Ivana finds a submission somewhere in there, or I could very easily see this one going to decision as well. I think Ivana just has more ways to win, and I think she's the better overall fighter, and she has been consistent compared to Juliana Miller. I got Ivana getting it done. Moving on, we have Don'Tale Mayes versus Thomas Peterson. So we all know about the heavyweight division, man. Close to the top of the division, we have some very dynamic and explosive fighters, right? But the farther back you get into the division, we get these very basic style of heavyweights, right? And that's kind of what we have in this fight here, to where Don'Tale Mayes, he likes to just kind of sit on the back foot. He doesn't really like to press the action. He likes when you try to come after him and chase, to where he could just land a good shot on the feet with the hands. And I think that that is going to be the issue for Don'Tale Mayes in this matchup, because I do think Mayes has some decent boxing on the feet. But what he does well, I don't know if it's good enough to beat Thomas Peterson, because Thomas, he's not a world beater by any means, but he does have pretty solid wrestling. And what we've seen from Don'Tale Mayes is that is a serious issue for him, right? We saw against Walter Walker, who I know has very good grappling of his own. He got taken down with ease in this matchup. He got dominated by Shamil Gaziev. And what we've seen from Mayes is if you can take him down and control him, he just looks like a fish out of water on the floor, man. He just does, and I don't think we've seen much improvement throughout his career. And his willingness to accept being on the back foot so much, that's a problem when you're facing guys that are going to want to wrestle you, because you're not dictating the pace and they are just able to back you up, and you're like constantly so worried about the shot to where if you're moving forward, you force the shot out of the wrestler, out of the grappler. And I don't think that Don'Tale Mayes is going to put any pressure on Thomas Peterson. So I know that Peterson, yes, he got starched by Shamil Gaziev. Shamil Gaziev's a damn good fighter, man. And I know we joke around, with Shamil and this and that. He's dangerous, right? He has good wrestling. He's got good power in his hands. So he got sniped here, but he was having some moments, right? And he was able to beat Mo Usman. And yes, he lost to Jamal Pogues, got outscored. But I think Thomas Peterson's the better fighter. I think on the feet, I don't think that there's much of a difference between these two. I think maybe Peterson is a tad bit quicker, to where maybe Pogues is a little bit more power. I don't know. But we also saw in the Contender Series, We know Peterson has submission, so I think he gets this fight to the floor, and I think that he wins a decision. I think that he lands with more activity on the feet. I just think he keeps Mays guessing, because if Mays gets taken down, I think it's going to be an issue. I think that Peterson can hold him down, control him, and even if Mays does get back to the feet, I think Thomas can just take him down again and win a boring decision. Maybe the first round's entertaining, but I expect this fight to be kind of unbearable as it starts to unfold. I think Thomas Peterson just has more ways to win and is the better overall fighter. I got Thomas getting it done. Moving on, we have Gaston Bolanos versus Quang Le. Interesting fight here, because I think that Gaston Bolanos, in terms of the volume and the versatility on the feet, I think that that is in his favor, right? Because since coming over to the UFC, we've seen some good things from him, right? I know he's not like he doesn't have crazy power in his hands. He doesn't have a ton of thud, but he is dynamic enough on the feet, right? He's got good low kicks, and if you let him sit at range, just kind of move around, switch stances, and attack your legs, he will do that all night long. So Lee is going to have an answer for that. But he also has decent hands, right? And I think what we saw in the Aaron Phillips fight, right? If he can get ahead and he can start to put that volume on you, you're going to be playing catch up against Gaston Bolanos. And he went out there and got starched by Marcus McGee, but we all know how good Marcus McGee is at this point. He is a very good fighter, dangerous guy in the division. Then he goes out there and wins a decision over Cortavius Oromia. So if I'm Gaston Bolanos, I'm sitting on the outside and I'm banging leg kicks from range all day long, because Quang Le, this guy's dangerous, man. He has some serious power in his hands, and we saw that over in LFA where he knocked out Cody Peterson and then was able to finish Thang as well. He's a very dangerous guy when you recklessly chase him, and when he closes the distance, you have to be very careful. But since he's been in the UFC, he's just not the same guy, right? Again, good competition here against Chris Gutierrez, got outscored, and then he got finished in his most recent fight 5 months ago. So the bottom line is this: Quang Le, of course, he has the power to put Bolanos out. So maybe he can find that shot, but I'm just not sure that he does. I think that Gaston Bolanos sits at range, picks and pokes from the outside, utilizes the boxing, but it's going to be the low kicks that are going to cause some issues for Lee in this matchup. I think Gaston Bolanos outscores Lee and gets this one done. Moving on, we have Marina Rodriguez versus Jillian Robertson. Very straightforward matchup here to me. This is kind of your classic striker versus grappler type of fight here. And Jillian Robertson, she's someone that is, she's done really well over her past 5 fights, right? Goes out there and subs Rodriguez, goes out there, loses to Tabitha Ricci, to where I've always said Tabitha's hype is greater than the skill set, right? But she's still a pretty game opponent. And then she subbed Poliana Viana, beat Michelle Waterson-Gomez, and then she's coming off of that win over Luana. So overall, Jillian Robertson, she's going to want to get this fight to the floor. She's got good submission, she's got solid ground and pound, and she has very, very good control when she is able to flatten you out on the floor. And I think that that is clearly going to be her game plan coming into this fight. And I believe she's got Dean Thomas really helping her prepare for these fights in her corner, and that is just an advantage, because we know Dean has a very sharp mind for the game, so they know what they're dealing with coming into this fight. Because Marina, she's going to be hungry for a win here. I think her back is to the wall, and she's on the verge of possibly being cut here by the UFC with a loss, because she got finished by Amanda Lemos. She lost to Virna Jandiroba, which again, 2 top fighters in the weight class. But I know Virna Jandiroba is very dangerous with the submissions, and yes, she has good takedowns. But I think Jillian can implement a similar game plan to that Virna was able to implement against Marina. And yes, again, Marina was able to finish Michelle Waterson-Gomez. More of a favorable matchup, because we know Gomez is a striker. Then she got outscored by Jessica Andrade in a split decision. And then she's coming off of another split decision loss to a rising fighter in the division in Yasmin Lucindo. Look, if Marina can keep the fight on the feet, I think that she absolutely picks apart Jillian Robertson. Maybe she can even find a finish if it stays on the feet. But normally when we see these types of matchups, yes, the striker can find a way to win. Yes, the takedown defense of a lot of strikers has improved over the years in the UFC. But from what we've seen from Marina, I just don't think it's good enough to stop what Jillian Robertson brings to the table, who's really starting to find her flow at almost 30 years of age here. I like what we have seen from Jillian Robertson so far compared to what we have seen from Marina so far. I'm going to need to see something different from a 38-year-old Marina Rodriguez in this fight to try to pick her moving forward. So I think Jillian Robertson is, I just think she takes her down, controls her. Maybe she finds a sub. Maybe she can find a ground and pound finish. I think she wins by decision here against Marina. Moving on, we have Azamat Bekoev versus Ryan Loder. Now, this is an interesting fight here because I know a lot of people are going to be quick to say, look, man, Ryan Loder, he's got this outstanding wrestling background, and he is a very good wrestler, and he's coming off of that tough win. He's a tough winner as he went out there and beat Robert Valentin, which, yeah, was a pretty solid win, but we've seen Robert Valentin, yeah, he's dangerous, but he's not particularly UFC caliber in my opinion. However, still was an impressive win there by Ryan Loder. But here's the deal. Azamat Bekoev, he's a serious problem in the middleweight division, man. I mean, in this fight here where he made his debut on short notice in the UFC against Zachary Reese, I was telling people, man, I'm like, this dude's he's gonna embarrass Zachary Reese. He's gonna go out there and absolutely destroy him. And I know it was on short notice, but Bekoev is a serious issue, man. This guy has very good wrestling, outstanding submissions, and on the feet, he is incredibly explosive. And I think when you look at Ryan Loder, yes, he has this outstanding wrestling background, which people are saying, oh, Azamat's never fought a wrestler, like Ryan Loder. Yeah, he kind of has, right? I believe it was Chris Honeycutt or Honeycomb or something like that where he fought him back in the day. And, that guy was a credentialed wrestler. I think he was a two-time NCAA Division I All-American at Edinburgh, if I'm not mistaken. So Azamat Bekoev has fought good wrestlers in the past. And I just think if you're Loder in this fight, he's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's the taller, longer, rangier guy, and I don't think his striking is that great, right? I think he's got some work to do there. And if you're stuck on the feet in front of Bekoev, I think that Loder is going to get absolutely destroyed. So that means that he's going to probably have to grapple in this fight. And Azamat's got good takedown defense. He's very scrambly if the fight does hit the floor, but he also has excellent submission ability. So I could see Azamat getting a KO in this fight, but I think Loder is going to be desperate to get this fight to the floor, which is going to end up being his demise in this fight. And I think that we see Azamat Bekoev find a submission in the second round. Maybe it's a finish in the first round where Bekoev just starches him, but I think this is a horrible stylistic matchup for Ryan Loder. I think Loder is very skilled. I think that he is a very good fighter, especially with the wrestling, but Bekoev's a monster, man. This guy is very, very dangerous, and the fact that he has the experience going up against good grapplers in the past with really good submissions when he can take your back and get into these good positions, Bekoev's dangerous, man. I think that he has much more of a finishing ability here in this fight than Ryan Loder. But if Ryan Loder can take him down, control him, keep him on bottom, and let some of the ground and pound go, then of course Loder could find a victory in this fight. But I think Azamat Bekoev is a lot for Loder to handle here in his debut. Tough go here. I think Bekoev is just that dude, man. Moving on, we have Yana Santos versus the OG Miesha Tate. Interesting here because Yana Santos, the last time we saw her was almost a year ago, to where she went out there and beat Chelsea Chandler by decision, to where we just saw Jocelyn Edwards completely obliterate Chelsea Chandler, right? And then before that, she lost 3 fights in a row, and one of those was to Holly Holm. Yeah, it was 2 years ago, but the thing and the theme with Yana Santos is I just feel like we've seen a little bit of a decline throughout her career. She's got decent striking on the feet, she's got decent submissions, but overall, she's kind of just a well-rounded fighter that I wouldn't say does anything particularly great. To where when you look at Miesha Tate, one, she's an absolute OG. And I've met Miesha Tate in person, and she's stout, man. She looked like she could pick me up and throw me through this wall over here. She is very physically strong, and what we've known throughout her career, obviously a former champion, she has outstanding wrestling. And when she's able to get a hold of people and take them down and control them, it's a problem for just about everybody in this division. And I know that she's creeping up there in age, man, and she's been around for a while. And she's coming off of this submission victory over Julia Avila, which, again, how good is Julia Avila? But still, Tate had a very long layoff before coming into that. She lost to Lauren Murphy, which is kind of alarming to me. Then she lost to Ketlin Vieira. And her last win before, beating Avila was Marion back almost 4 years ago. So Tate's been, she's taken some breaks here and there. I think she's getting close to the end for sure. But I don't believe Yana Santos, maybe she defends an early takedown or two, but Miesha will not stop moving forward with the takedowns. I think Yana is the sharper striker on the feet, but something's telling me that Miesha Tate is going to get this one done, man. And I think that she finds a submission in this fight. I'm going Miesha Tate by first, or nah, I'm not going to be that crazy. I'll say second round submission. Maybe, well, watch it end up being in the first. But I think Miesha Tate is able to get this one done. Maybe she just grinds out a decision win here, but I see Santos really struggling to stop the grappling and the wrestling of Miesha Tate as this fight plays out. I think the OG Miesha Tate is able to get this one done, and maybe she retires after this one. I don't know, but I think she gets this one done. I think this is a good matchup for Tate here. Moving on, we have Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens versus Mason Jones. Right here. Hardest hitting 45 are right here. When I knock people out, they don't fucking move. You know, who the fuck is that guy? Look, people know who Jeremy Stevens is now, man. And I've said for the longest time, just an OG of the sport. Jeremy Stevens, if you watch his highlight tape, I just call him the Freddy Krueger of MMA. This dude is ferocious and violent when he is able to land on guys. You saw him over in BKFC recently, which just felt like the perfect sport for Jeremy Stevens. Violence, violence, and violence. That is the name of the game for Jeremy Stevens. Now, the elephant in the room, he's been boxing and he's been doing BKFC. So while his hands may be crispy, there's a lot more to MMA than just throwing punches. And I think in this fight, obviously he's fighting in his hometown in Iowa, and it's just concerning to me because, yes, he's almost 39 years of age, but the last time that we saw Jeremy Stevens win a fight in MMA was a split decision win over Miles Price in the PFL. And his last MMA outing, he got subbed, right? But again, he went out there against Clay Collard. That was a fun fight. I knew that was going to be a banger when they, booked that one. The last time we've seen him in the UFC was almost 4 years ago to where he got subbed by Mateusz Gamrot. Now, the thing with Jeremy Stevens, he's been in there with the who's who, man, but a lot of his best work was done at 145 pounds. And this one being at lightweight, I just don't know if Stevens is the same guy, but I think his power translates. I think if he lands on anybody in either of those weight classes, he can starch anybody. The issue with Jeremy, he's been out of MMA for a while, but again, he's a long-time MMA fighter. I don't think that it's going to be like, oh, he's super rusty when it comes to the mixed martial arts aspect. It's the fact that Mason Jones is actually a pretty good fighter, man. He's a pretty good fighter. He was someone that was in the UFC. He lost a decision to Mike Davis. He was able to actually beat David Onama, which we've seen how good David Onama is, so that win has aged very well. And then he lost to Ludovic Klein, and then he got let go, right? Ludovic Klein, he's a pretty game opponent. So what we've seen from Mason Jones since that Klein loss is a finish, and a decision over Pagani almost a year ago. So the bottom line is this. Mason Jones and Jeremy Stevens, this is going to be a banger here. I think that this is going to be a super fun fight here. This is a great way for Jeremy Stevens to maybe go out, maybe goes back to BKFC, I don't know. If Jeremy Stevens hits Mason Jones clean, he will absolutely knock him out. I have no question about it. The problem is, I don't know if he's able to land those clean shots that are going to be able to put Mason out, because we've seen Mason is tough, he's durable, and this dude is not afraid of a firefight. And I think that he is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist at this time in his career. And I don't think that Jeremy is going to have the volume to keep up with Mason Jones in this fight. Of course, Jeremy could land a nasty uppercut or a big ooga booga shot that puts Mason Jones out. But I think that's kind of what you're banking on if you're picking Jeremy to win this fight. I'm rooting for Jeremy. I hope that he gets it done. My heart is with Jeremy in this one, but my brain is telling me that the 30-year-old Mason Jones, who is back in the UFC with a big opportunity, is going to get this one done. I'll say by decision. I think that there's a shot that, Jones finds a finish, or maybe Jeremy lands a shot here, but I think the volume and activity of Mason Jones is going to give Jeremy Stevens some issues. But make no mistake about it, if Jeremy lands a shot, he's going to hurt Mason Jones. This dude has devastating power, and he has very good low kicks as well, which is, I think, a very underrated portion of Jeremy Stevens' game. I just think Mason Jones is, he's been fighting in MMA. He's kind of really starting to hit his stride, man, getting another crack in the UFC. Big opportunity for him. Jeremy Stephens hasn't won in the UFC in a long time. It's been a long time since we've seen him look good in the UFC too. I mean, I know he's had some tough opposition in there. I just think that, yeah, he's getting a fight in Iowa and it's his hometown. That doesn't mean that you're going to win. Of course, I'd love to see it. But realistically, I think Mason Jones is able to outscore him and get this one done. But I expect this to be a fun fight, though. Moving on, we have Cameron Smotherman versus Sidey, S squared, right? Because I'm not sure if I got the pronunciation accurate there. However, Sidey is a very talented fighter. What we've seen from him, man, he can stick and move. He's a sharpshooter from the outside. But one of the interesting things about this guy that really just throws me off is his fight IQ. This guy, when he is able to get the fight to the floor, he's got really good jiu-jitsu. He's got good ground and pound, and he is a dangerous dude. We saw that against Ramon Taveras when he went out there on the Contender Series, which I think this win has actually aged pretty well, getting a KO victory over Ramon Taveras. And then he goes out there and loses to Taveras again by split decision, and then he wins a split decision over Garrett Armfield. I thought he lost this fight. I believe he even said that he thought he lost this fight. So the bottom line is Sidey is a well-rounded fighter. I think if he comes into this and he fights strategically and introduces the grappling into this fight, I think that he can have a tremendous amount of success in this fight. Not to say that he can't knock out Smotherman, but I think if he chooses to grapple, he could find a lot of success in this fight and possibly even submit Smotherman. Here's the deal, though. We've seen from Sidey that he can't be trusted in terms of the game planning department and how he approaches these fights. And what we have seen from Cameron Smotherman, yes, this loss has not aged particularly well to where he got starched on the Contender Series. But he goes into Fury, does a pretty good job, gets himself back into the UFC, and beats Jake Hadley, who is going on a tear in the flyweight division. And I know Smotherman is a smaller guy in the bantamweight division. But I think we see this all the time. When these guys are a little bit lighter and they move up a division, we see that they're a little bit sharper. Not all the time, right? But they're usually a little bit sharper, a little bit quicker, and a little bit more skilled in certain areas, if not all areas. I believe Cameron Smotherman, while he is a little bit reckless for my liking at times, and he drops his hands, and I think if Sidey punches with him as Smotherman starts to let the boxing go, I think Sidey can find a shot or time one, get underneath, get him down to the floor, and find a submission. But I think something about Cameron Smotherman, I like this guy's attitude. I think he's confident. I think that loss on the Contender Series is one of those things that is going to make him better moving forward, which we have clearly seen with him riding a 4-fight win streak here. I think the underdog Cameron Smotherman gets this done. I'm going to go a first-round knockout by Cameron Smotherman. Of course, I could see Sidey winning this fight. I could see, this going to some sort of decision or whatever. But Smotherman's got some power, man. He's speedy on the feet. His boxing is really, really good. But he does drop his hands. So I think if Sidey can punch with them and find those windows of opportunity, he can find himself a finish as well. I think that this is going to be a firefight unless Sidey tries to take the path of least resistance, which would be the grappling. We haven't seen him display outstanding fight IQ, in my opinion, thus far. Can't trust him. I like Cameron Smotherman in this fight as the underdog. I think his power is excellent, and I think his boxing is very good. I got Cameron Smotherman getting this one done by knockout. Moving on, we have Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. This might be my favorite fight on the card. And maybe I'm reaching a little bit there, but I really like this matchup, man. This is one of those fights that I look at this and I'm like, I could see this going either way, right? Because Daniel Marcos is undefeated and there's kind of the aura of, well, is Montel Jackson going to take his O? And from what we've seen from Marcos, man, this guy's good. We saw him get the finish over Oliveira. We saw him win a split decision over Davey Grant. And Davey Grant, he's a tricky guy in the weight class, right? He's dynamic from the outside. He's got those long-rangey front kicks. He's a hard guy to deal with, right? And then he goes out there and beats John Castaneda, but he's coming off a split decision win against Adrian Yanez that kind of has me questioning things, right? Because, yeah, he's, 2 split decisions here with Grant and Yanez, but with Daniel Marcos, I think that there's a clear path to victory over this guy. He is very durable. He's durable. He's got outstanding leg kicks, and I think one of the things that helps Jackson in this fight is this is an open stance battle, meaning that Montel Jackson's a southpaw, Daniel Marcos is an orthodox style fighter, so it kind of eliminates that rear leg low kick that Marcos loves to rely on. But I'm anticipating that Marcos is going to look to switch stances to keep that available, because Daniel Marcos, it starts and stops with him coming after your base. He will attack your lead leg and he will try to hinder your movement. I think the better overall mixed martial artist here is Montel Jackson. I think that he has a good ground game that we've seen at times, right? I think that in this fight, if he breaks that out, I think he definitely can get this one done. But I think he's going to come in here looking to play the kickboxing game. And I'm not saying that Marcos is some easy guy to take down, because I don't know if Jackson can control Marcos on the ground. But the power of Montel Jackson and that piston left hand that this guy has, we saw that against Damon Blackshear. We saw that against Yaya. We have seen that Montel Jackson's kind of had this resurgence. He is on a tear right now, and I believe if he can defend the leg kicks, have an answer for that, because also when you're throwing those leg kicks, it's not like he's throwing them like Pereira or Gary where they're utilizing the long guard and he's a tall, rangy guy sitting back there to where you're out of range to be encountered, because, you know, Montel Jackson's got a nice advantage in terms of the reach here, right? He's got about, what is that, a 6-inch reach advantage. He's a little bit taller. I think that he can time a leg kick from Daniel Marcos and land a sniper left-hand missile down the middle. And I'm going to be bold here. I think that Montel Jackson is able to knock out Daniel Marcos. I'll say in the second round. I could definitely see this being a decision. And if it goes to decision, it would be Jackson winning by creating more damage and dropping Marcos and hurting him. Or it would be Marcos outscoring Jackson with the volume and the activity. But I know Marcos is durable. I know that this is a little bold here, but something about that power in that sniper left-handed Jackson, you know how I am with the straight shots, man. Guys that can, you know, really put a good straight shot down the middle, well-timed, it could be an issue for a guy like Daniel Marcos. I think that, yes, Adrian Yanez is very skilled. Yes, Davey Grant is tricky. None of them hit as hard as Montel Jackson with a good straight shot down the pipe. Yanez is a guy that, yeah, he's entertaining. I like his style, but we saw him kind of get exposed a little bit by Rob Font, and he hasn't been the same guy since, and Marcos is going to a close decision there to where, yes, he could out-volume and outwork Jackson, and I think that that is a possibility in this fight. Something about the power of Montel Jackson in that left hand. I think it's different. I think that this guy's really hitting his stride. I'm going Montel Jackson to win regardless, but I think he can find a KO shot in this weight class. I think he's like a Dominic Reyes, like the resurged or a prime Dominic Reyes in this division, man. The way that he is able to time that left hand, I like Montel Jackson a lot. I think he gets it done. Moving on, we have Santiago Ponzininbbio versus D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. I think this is a very hard fight to pick here. Look, both guys are almost 39 years of age. They've been in the UFC for a while, and I would say Ponzininbbio has more miles on him, right? And in terms of styles, Ponzininbbio is very well-rounded, and he loves to move forward, and he throws those big ooga-booga hooks, man, to where if he lands, he could put anybody out, right? We know that about Ponzininbbio. He's got outstanding power. He's well-rounded. But he's doing the commentary stuff for the UFC now, right? And whenever we see guys do that, it's like, you're kind of getting into that kind of realm. And, I still think he's a very skilled fighter, but he's got a lot of miles on him. He's getting up there in age. And I know D-Rod's been around for a while as well. But Daniel Rodriguez, to me, if he floats around on the outside and makes this a technical striking match, I believe that D-Rod wins this fight. And I know that over his past 5 fights, it's been kind of tough, right? He, won over the Leech, which a lot of people thought the Leech won. Then he, got subbed by Neil Magny. He lost to Ian Gary, which Ian Gary's, very, very good. Goes out there, loses to Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum missed weight by an entire weight class, made D-Rod fight at middleweight, and then just laid on his ass, right? So again, that's kind of BS there. Then he goes out there and outscores Alex Morono. So I have some concern here because D-Rod, if he wins, I don't think it's going to be by much. I think that he does have decent power to where he can snipe Ponzininbbio, but we've seen Ponzi's durable, man. We've seen that, and, his past 2 wins, he was able to KO Alex Morono. He's not going to a decision with him, and then he KO'd Carlston Harris, which I thought he was going to run right through him, right? So him being kind of, battered around a little bit by Harris, that surprised me. I just really don't know in this one. I don't know in this one. I still don't know who I'm picking. I'm being honest. I really don't know who I'm picking. I kind of had the thought that I was going to pick D-Rod in this fight because I think he's a little bit more technical and he doesn't have as many miles on him. But it's crazy because everyone that I feel like D-Rod is getting, sneaking by a decision with, Ponzininbbio, he may be losing those fights, but he finds the knockout shot eventually. I don't know, man. This is a tough one here. I'm going to go Santiago Ponzininbbio. Fuck it. I'm going to go Ponzininbbio by knockout. I'm going to say in the third round here. Maybe he finds a finish late. I could absolutely see Daniel Rodriguez picking and poking and outscoring Ponzininbbio over the course of 15 minutes. But I think even if he's doing that, while he could get to Ponzininbbio and it didn't look particularly good in Ponzinibbio's last outing, I think the power of Santiago can be the difference in this fight. And again, these decisions that D-Rod is winning, he's not really separating himself. And I think if Ponzi can create more damage, I think that he could get the nod in this matchup. But maybe he finds a KO, maybe it goes to decision. But I'm going to roll with Santiago Ponzinibbio getting this one done. I think that the power on his side, while he goes a little bit ooga booga, kind of forgets the technique at times, I think that could be the difference in this fight, is the damage that Ponzinibbio can create. But this is a toss-up for me, man. I could see this going either way. But I'll go with Ponzinibbio here. Co-main event, we have Reinier de Ridder, RDR, versus Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal, man. Listen, I've been very hard on Bo Nickal. And the reason that I've been hard on Bo Nickal is, one, he's said a lot of stupid shit. He's kind of just been this whiny nuisance since coming into the UFC, giving me these kind of spoiled brat type of vibes. But the bottom line is I'm hard on Bo Nickal because I believe that this guy is an elite athlete, especially when it comes to the wrestling, but I believe that he has a ton of potential in the fight game. I mean, we don't have to go through what Bo Nickal has done as a wrestler at Penn State and all of his accomplishments. This guy's as elite as it gets in terms of a wrestler coming over into the UFC, and he's been undefeated, right? On the Contender Series, they had to bring him back, just to get the guy more experience, but since coming into the UFC off the Contender Series, goes out there, subs Jamie Pickett, KO's Val Woodburn, subs Cody Brundage, to where Brundage shucked him off and it kind of created a moment for himself, but Bo Nickal ended up dominating in the end there. Then he goes out there and puts on a performance against Paul Craig that kind of had everyone scratching their heads. It's like, but I kind of, thought about it and I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe Bo Nickal had this approach. Look, Paul Craig's zero threat on the feet whatsoever. The only way Paul Craig beats anybody is basically by getting the shit beat out of him and throwing up a Hail Mary submission late in the fight, right? Now, that's kind of exaggerated a little bit there, but that's how Paul Craig has gotten a lot of his big wins, is in that fashion. Did Bo Nickal approach that fight saying, I think he kind of said this, do I just want to go in there and get some experience kickboxing with a guy that I know isn't very dangerous, right? Let me get some minutes in there striking, because at some point in this fight, in the middleweight division, I might not be able to take everyone down and things may play out on the feet. I need to feel comfortable there. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But if I'm Bo Nickal and I'm in his corner and I'm in his camp, I don't give a shit. I don't care what the striking of Bo Nickal looks like. I don't care how it's improved. I kind of care, right? Bo Nickal needs to take a page out of the book of like Khamzat Chimaev. He needs to take a page out of the book of Khabib and some of these guys, man. You are a dominant wrestler, and not just a dominant wrestler. Bo Nickal does not get the credit he deserves for having very, very good submission skills. If he goes out there, starts fast, doesn't even give RDR a moment to breathe, and gets all over his ass and just grapples him, takes him down, I believe Bo Nickal can absolutely destroy Reinier de Ridder. Maybe that's a little crazy. I think that highly of Bo Nickal. While I kind of pick on him and get frustrated, I should say pick on him, but pick at him, for these things. Bo Nickal's dialed back on what I wanted, man, was to stop whining and talking about Khamzat and all these different things. You're not ready. Focus on getting better. You're new in the fight game, man, and continue to round out your skill set, because RDR, he's been dangerous since he's got into the UFC, right? He goes out there and subs Jerome Mearshart, but he made GM3 look like a glory kickboxing champ in there, right? I mean, GM3 was landing some good shots, right? I know GM3 has good submissions, but he's nowhere near the grappler that Bo Nickal is. And we saw GM3 having some success. And then, of course, he goes out there and dominates Kevin Holland. And, we know how Holland is at middleweight, right? Against these big grapplers, he struggles. The bottom line is this. RDR is very, very elite when it comes to the submission game. Without question, he has very good submissions on the feet. Maybe he's a little bit better than Bo Nickal. I don't know, though. I don't think RDR is very good on the feet. Maybe he's got a little bit more dynamic. When I say dynamic, I mean maybe because he just throws a couple more front kicks or something. Neither guy's particularly good on the feet. However, Bo Nickal can knock his ass out, man. Bo Nickal, as good as the striking may not be, he's got some serious power. We saw him KO Val Woodburn. We saw when he lands on guys, he can hurt him. I think Bo Nickal dominates RDR, man. And I was back and forth on it, and I was like, maybe RDR schools this guy and this and that. No way in hell does that happen. I'd be shocked if it happens, to be honest with you. Going back and watching the tape, I think Bo Nickal, I think he subs RDR. I think he subs Reinier de Ridder. I'm going to say in the third round. Maybe it happens earlier. Maybe even knocks out Reinier de Ridder, because there's a possibility that both of these guys go in there, they don't want to grapple, and we get this shitty kickboxing fight on the feet. Of course, that's possible. But no, I'm saying second round, not third round. That's too late. At that point, I think we're going to a decision. I think Bo Nickal comes out here, gets back to who he is. He shoots for takedowns, gets in the face of Reinier de Ridder, does not really give him the time to operate. And yes, I know RDR has elite submission skills. Bo Nickal's been out there grappling. We saw him grapple with Gordon Ryan. I know Gordon Ryan's as good as it gets, man. When it comes to the jiu-jitsu game, Bo Nickal has drastically improved since then. He has good submissions of his own, good power on the feet, and he is an elite athlete. And when it comes to the grappling, it doesn't get much better than Bo Nickal, man. I think he dominates Reinier de Ridder in this fight if he does what Bo Nickal is capable of, and I think he does in this fight. He cuts the shit, gets after it, and gets the biggest win of his career this far in very impressive fashion. I think Bo Nickal is able to get this one done, man. Like I said, I think Bo Nickal is incredibly skilled. He cut back on talking about this and whining about that. Focus on going out there and putting on these performances. And if he does, things are going to go Bo Nickal's way, man. I think that, again, the middleweight division, there's a lot of hard matchups for him. He's not ready for the top of the heap yet, but this is a big fight to prove where Bo Nickal is at, and I think he goes out there and destroys Reinier de Ridder in this fight. Going back and watching that GM3 fight, I know GM3 is sneaky, kind of good at times, right? But I think Bo Nickal dominates him, man. If he goes out there and does what he's capable of, I like Bo in this fight. Moving on, main event, we have Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I think that this is one of those fights where we're not going to be like, ooh, wow, ooh, ah, like all these crazy moments where guys are getting stung around and it's this all-out war. That's really not how I see this fight. I think that this is going to be a very strategic fight nerd type of matchup where you pull out your notebook and you're taking some notes on some things, because I believe Cory Sandhagen, I've said this for the longest time, I think that he is one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC, period. I think that what can Cory Sandhagen do? I know he doesn't have a ton of power in his hands, but he's got decent boxing, he's got solid kicks, good elbows, good knees, and he's got a well-rounded skill set when it comes to the grappling, right? So I think Cory Sandhagen is basically good everywhere. The issue is I don't think he's particularly outstanding anywhere. When I mean outstanding, I think he's an outstanding fighter, but he doesn't have that specific thing that completely stands out compared to his skill set. He's just kind of just good everywhere, right? That's kind of what we've seen from Cory. And what we saw is, yes, he lost to Petr Yan, which was a very fun fight, super tactical fight. Goes out there and finishes Song Yadong because he was able to slice him up, get a cut there, cut stoppage. Goes out there and, just takes down Marlon Chito Vera. Boring fight, but controlled him and shown that he, has improved in the grappling. Did the same thing to Rob Font. And he's coming off of a decision loss to Umar Nurmagomedov. Deiveson Figueiredo has been incredible throughout his career, especially at flyweight. He has crazy power, and since coming up to bantamweight, he hasn't had the same knockout ability as flyweight, but I do think the power sort of translates, right? Because from what we've seen from him, he lost to Brandon Moreno, comes up to bantamweight, he stung Rob Font, man. He was putting it on Rob Font, goes out there, and this win right here, I don't think Figgy gets the credit he deserves against Cody Garbrandt. Who submits Cody Garbrandt, right? I know that this exactly isn't a prime Cody, but he's a hard guy to take down and control, and let alone sub. That was a very impressive by Deiveson Figueiredo. Then he goes out there and drops Marlon Chito Vera, and he's coming off of the masterclass performance by Petr Yan, to where he just got, completely, kind of strategically outmatched there by Petr Yan. But the bottom line is this. This is a strategic fight. I think that Deiveson Figueiredo does not have the output on his side. I think that he has the power on his side, to where if he can wait and land some of those power shots, especially with that right hand, I think that he could hurt Cory Sandhagen. Now, finishing Cory Sandhagen in terms of a knockout, that's a tall order, man. That's a tough thing to do. That's not really something that we're used to seeing, and that's going to be a very hard thing to do. And if you're looking to grapple, while Umar Nurmagomedov clearly dominated Cory Sandhagen, we saw how scrambly Cory was in that fight. And are you meaning to say that Figueiredo is going to be a better wrestler than Umar? I don't think so. I know Figgy has good takedowns, and he's really started to lean more on the grappling here, especially at bantamweight. And yes, he's coming up from flyweight, and he does have, a little bit of a skill and speed edge to him in this division. But I don't know that it's the same, right? I know he's hurting guys, but how does he win this fight? Was he going to knock out Cory? Don't see it. Could he sub him? Like, if you're surviving against Umar for 25 minutes, I don't think Figgy subs him, right? Again, I know that, MMA math doesn't always add up. So what's he going to win, a decision over Sandhagen? I don't see it. He doesn't have the volume and output on his side. I don't think he's going to sting Cory in multiple rounds. I think Cory Sandhagen wins this fight by decision. I think that this is one of those fights that we look at and it's just like one of those like super artsy mixed martial arts on display to where Cory can poke at him from the outside with the kicks, pick him apart with the boxing, maybe even mix in some takedowns of his own. Sandhagen's very smart in there, man, which sometimes that gets in the way of him going out there and just fighting. He's so strategic and so methodical, which, yes, that's very good, but at times I think he holds himself back, actually, from going out there and fighting to the best of his ability. But I think in this fight, he's going to be very strategic. He's going to bang the leg kicks from the outside, mix in the boxing, utilize the knees and elbows in close, and I think if Figgy looks to grapple, he's going to have a hard time dealing with Cory Sandhagen. And the one thing about Cory is when you try to grapple with him, he's a live submission threat on the ground, man. He can put guys in some dangerous positions. If you go back to that TJ Dillashaw fight, to where when TJ would take him down, Cory's throwing him right into submissions. He will threaten with those to work his way back to his feet. I just think Cory and his well-rounded skill set is going to be a little bit too much for Deiveson Figueiredo in this fight. But either way, I think that this is going to be a super strategic, well-thought-out, well-game plan type of fight. I think Figgy looks to grapple. I think he has the power edge, especially in the right hand. But I think Sandhagen, we know he's got a dangerous flying knee. We know he's really well-rounded. I think he's going to be very strategic in the way he approaches this. I think Cory Sandhagen is able to get this one done. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.